Hey everyone, it's CL. So today's video is for those out there who believe in the power of your intuition. So I experienced something today that really validated my intuition, that once again my intuition was spot on. So sometime last week, maybe 3 or 4 days ago, I had posted a video where something about change and I'm not ready for change, and I ever so briefly mentioned at the very end, like I was feeling anxiety, like I feel that change is on the way, but I didn't really go deep into that. So what you didn't see is that behind the scenes last week, out of nowhere, I was struck with like severe anxiety to the point where I was not sleeping and I was crying well, I don't even want to say I was crying every night. I was crying all day. I could feel it so clearly inside of me that my intuition was telling me that something is changing, change is on the way, something is changing that you have no control over. But then I couldn't pinpoint what that change was. But every day I could feel like there was this cloud over me with the sense of something's changing, something's happening, something's going on. So whenever I have like severe anxiety related to my intuition, I have this internal Rolodex that I go through. I'm like, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be this? And I went through every single part of my internal Rolodex and I couldn't pinpoint what was the change. Like, what was the change? I couldn't pinpoint it, and I think that was what was giving me severe anxiety. So as you know, my daughter's dad came to visit this weekend. So just today, as he was getting his stuff ready to go leave to catch his Uber to the airport, I had sent to him something like, oh, how long until you fly into Washington, D.C.? And he said, oh, I'm not flying into that airport. And then I'm thinking, oh, well, the next alternate airport that's kind of close to where he lives is in Virginia. So I was like, oh, are you flying into Virginia? And he says, no, I'm not flying into there. And I'm just like, well, where are you flying into? What airport are you flying into? Because those are the normal two that we use, right? And he said, as he was getting ready to walk out the door, that he moved. Like, moved where? Where'd you move? And this is something I don't think he was planning on telling me, because he didn't bring it up at all during the time he was here. It was only that last minute catch where I had initiated, like, oh, when are you gonna get to Washington, D.C.? It was me blurting that out last minute to where I learned that he moved. So he tells me where he moved to, and for me, it was confusing in the sense it hit me so suddenly. I'm so used to that normal routine, and when something throws off the routine, and it stuns you a little bit, and then you just have to like process what is happening. And then once he left, I think like maybe like 30 minutes or an hour had passed, and I start researching where he moved to. It's a place where I've heard of, but I've never at all had any desire to visit there. And once I started researching it, everything started to come together. The timing of my intuition was spot on, because it turns out he moved just last week. And that's when I internally, without knowing what was happening, was freaking out. So the reason why this is significant in our lives is because with our divorce, we do have shared custody, in the sense certain amount of months out of the year, my daughter will visit her dad where he lives. And when I researched the place where he lived, it is a high crime rate area, and I'm not talking petty theft. This is violent crime. It's a high crime rate for violent crime. Where he used to live on the East Coast before he moved was a very safe area. I had no worries that my daughter was safe. It was nice and safe. He lived in what was considered a luxurious area. I had no anxiety about her being in that area. And there's plenty to do. There's lots of people, different cultures, different backgrounds. It's just like a nice area. So now knowing that he moved to a high crime rate area, as a parent, as a mom, of course you always want your children to be safe. And having that knowledge does make me anxious, because I know the type of person my ex is. He is the type of person that if he wants to do something, he will always put himself first. Like the reason why I stayed married with him for so long, I really thought I knew why he was the way he was. Later to realize just because he is that way, and it's not his fault that he is that way, doesn't mean I need to stay in a toxic environment. In particular, during the last year we were together before I decided to leave, he would make these selfish requests that I felt put my daughter in danger, and it was essentially the straw that broke the camel's back. So when he wanted to go out and party, he was going to do that regardless. If I said, please don't do that, stay home, spend time with the family, he would go out and party, because if that's something he wanted to do, he's gonna do it. And then sometimes he would ask me to come along, and keep in mind, when he goes out partying, he doesn't come back until the next day. And then I would say things like, no, I can't go, I have to watch Elle. And at that time, Elle was still fairly young. In my mind, as a parent, not old enough to stay by herself essentially all night and the next morning. And I was like, no. And I would tell him, no, I'm not gonna do that, because somebody needs to watch Elle, and I want to stay and I want to watch her. I'm her mom. I want to take care of her. And he would get so mad, and he would say things like, just leave her. Just leave her. Let's go partying. Just leave her. And I didn't want to do that. And that was one of those things that really caused me to see him in a different light, which was the straw that broke the camel's back. And this is why we are where we are. But fast forward to now. So that is why, as a parent, as mom, I have anxiety about him moving into a higher crime rate area, because I don't know whether or not he's gonna leave her to fend for herself, you know what I mean? I hope not, but it really depends on his environment. He's a very environmental person. It depends on the type of friends that he makes. It just kind of emphasizes that I do have a strong intuition and that I need to follow it every time. But the one thing I don't like is that I couldn't hone in on what that something was. So I do want to work a little bit on my intuition, and kind of to be able to like refine it a little better if it's possible. That is what's going on with me. Lots and lots of change occurring. So let me know your thoughts down below, whether or not you have a strong intuition or whether or not you don't believe in intuition. So I'm curious to see what you all think. Other than that, it's something that I really needed to get off my chest, just because it was something that was agonizing me all last week. And now that I have the information, I can kind of connect the dots now of like why I was feeling the way I was feeling. Everything makes sense. Anyways, that's the update for today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.